guys, we completed that 28, which is really cool. My phone keeps getting spamming and faith because you were spamming me with and side youth book to go to. So I've actually now finished the book I finished at school, but we only just started on chapter 23, which is actually the last chapter. So, chapter 23, let's start. Steph gave me a piece of bread and jam too, even though I did a Toka style mine to show her I'd eaten. I took it out to the barn and went on working on the bike. I was determined to make it even better than the one Vic and his dad had bullied us into handing over. It must have been 2 or 3 hours later when Paige and Steph came running into the barn. Paige was wide awake now, and she pulled at my arm while Steph rattled on at me. "Leave the bike," Paige said. "Steph wants to take us somewhere." My heart fluttered. "Is it Toka?" Paige shook her head. "No, it's something else, something special. If we don't hurry, we'll miss it. Come on!" Stop spamming my phone! Come on. Steph was signaling the same thing, so I pushed my tools into a corner and covered them over with some old polythene. Then I let Paige drag me into the pickup. Steph didn't take the main road. She wove her way between the fields of sunflowers, turning right, left, right on narrow tracks that were invisible until we reached them. Finally, we came up against the barrier at a T-junction, and she parked at the side of the road and looked at her watch. The E to E. I don't know what that means, but I must learn it very soon. So it's the I-T and then F. She said, "V-E-T, V-T, V-T." She leaped out, beckoning us to follow, and ran up to the junction. There were half a dozen old men leaning on the barrier, chatting to each other. Steph asked them a question, and they shook their heads and pointed up the road. "What is it?" I said to Paige. "What are we doing here?" She grinned. "It's a surprise. Come on." And she pulled me up to the barrier. We were just in time. A second later, a cluster of cars came down the road. One of them had a camera mounted on the top, but I still didn't guess why Steph had brought me there. Not until all the cars were past. Then suddenly, half a dozen racing bikes came swooping towards us. They were travelling at an unmanageable speed, moving like birds in the air, like fish through the water. The pedals wheeled round as if it took no effort at all to spin the wheels. The cyclists flashed by so fast I hardly had time to see them all. A heartbeat, and they were gone. But it wasn't over. A couple of seconds there were more bikes, and more, and more. A great gaggle of them riding clumped up together, frightening close to each other and to us. I could have reached out and touched the nearest one. One of the old men just that. He leaned forward and gave one of the cyclists a quick pat as he flew past. Then he turned and grinned at us as if he had just seen the best sight in the world. I watched the whole thing almost without breathing, desperate not to miss a single beautiful second. And when all the bikes had passed, I leaned over the barrier and looked up the road, following them with my eyes. They swung round the corner and disappeared, but I went on staring at the empty road, not wanting to lose them, not wanting it to end. That was where I wanted to be, racing into the distance, with all that beautiful French space unrolling in front of me. Maybe if I worked hard, ... If I stayed enough money to buy a racing bike, ... if I trained and trained, ... Steph leaned over and said something in my ear, and when I looked round, I saw her smiling at me. That was the Tour de French, Paige said. She wants to know if you liked it. I drew a long breath before I could speak. Of course I liked it, I said. Tell her it was the best. Tell her. Well, that didn't seem enough. I wanted to tell her myself, so she knew I really meant it. The right word felt strange in my mouth when I made myself say it. Mercy, I said. Mercy, Steph. She laughed and patted my shoulder. This is like later on because this is pretty end. I didn't come back down to earth until Paige and I were walking back to the camp. Then, as we came out onto the road, my dream of cycling into freedom crashed up against real life. How could I disappear into the distance like that? I had no money, nowhere to go, and no way of getting food, and I couldn't speak French. The only place I could survive was Lemon Dutch. I'd always wondered why the soldiers didn't keep us shut in there, but now I understood. They knew we weren't all going to disappear into French countryside because we couldn't. We had to stay where people would feed us and give us shelter. Outside Lemon Dutch, we'd be lost. That was when the idea came to me, very quietly, like the last piece of a puzzle sliding into place. I looked round at Paige. I know what we ought to do about Bob, I said. He'll get what he deserves, but you won't have to go back to England. We stopped right there, on the edge of the road, and I told her what we were going to say to him. Later. We waited 24 hours to make sure we had everything worked out perfectly. Then we went to find Bob. He'd been lying low, spending most of the days outside the camp, and Paige had moved down into Merlin's tent to avoid him. So we hadn't seen him at all for a couple of days. But we knew he'd waggle himself a place inside the sports centre. He wouldn't want to lose that, so he was sure to be there in the evening. We went up when it was beginning to get dark. Paige waited in the car park, and I slid inside and found Bob in a corner, talking very quietly to a woman with two little boys. I don't know what he was saying, but he stopped as soon as he saw me. Paige is outside, I said. She wants to talk to you. He gave me his familiar, easy smile, as if there was nothing wrong. Can't come just at the moment. I'm doing a bit of business. You'll come, I muttered, if you've got any sense, I said very lightly. Nothing heavy, but he got the message. My daughter. She's not even your daughter, mate. It's what you could have done. My daughter's got some problem, he said, apologizing genetically to the woman with the little boy. You know how it is. I'll be back in a minute. He sounded like a sensible, concerned father. If I hadn't known, I would have never have guessed that he hadn't got any children. Paige was over in the far corner of the car park, well away from the building, but close enough to the soldiers if things went wrong. Bob strolled across to her, still playing the perfect parent. Is there something wrong? He said. Paige nodded, pressing her lips together. You know what's wrong, she muttered, and I know what I'm going to do about it. Bob didn't react, but I could see him watching her very closely, waiting for what was coming. I can't go on pretending to be your daughter, Paige said. Not after what you've done. I'm going in to see Bernardy to tell her the truth. For a second, Bob was very still. Then he said, Don't be silly. If they send me back, you'll have to go too. Paige tossed her head. I don't care. I can't keep this up. It makes me sick. Bob looked round at me. Can't you talk some sense into her? She'll just be making a fool of herself. No one's going to believe her. They will if we have a DNA test, Paige said softly. There was a small, cold silence. My heart was pounding so fast I could hardly breathe. What would Bob do next? Would he try and need it? I was gambling on that, but suppose he didn't. Suppose he called up bluff. He did something even worse. Suddenly he looked straight at me and said, I can't go back to England because I'm on that post just like you and Toka and Justin. It sliced the air like a hatchet flying between me and Paige. I thought, why didn't I tell her when I had the chance? It ruined everything. I didn't dare look round at her, but I could feel her standing very still beside me, and I braced myself, waiting for her to yell at me and march off in disgust. But she didn't. She took a long, slow breath. It's not the same, she said, and you know it. You were struggling to make money. Matt and his family were just getting food to survive. And she reached out sideways and caught hold of my hand, gripping it hard. Oh shit. That was when Bob gave up on Lemon Dutch. His eyes flickered for a second. Then he said, Look, there's no need to make a drama out of this. You're cutting off your nose to spit your face. Why don't I just go away from here? They won't miss me as long as Paige keeps picking up the food vouchers. Isn't that better than getting us both sent back? Done it, I thought. Our plan had worked perfectly. We'd got Bob to suggest the answer he wanted and made him think it was his own idea. But Paige hadn't finished yet. She narrowed her eyes. You can't get off scot-free like that. If you want to keep quiet, you'll have to pay for those spikes. No problem, Bob said quickly. He took out his wallet. Paige shook her head. Not that. I want French money. Bob slid the wallet back into his pocket. How much? Tell you tomorrow morning. Paige said, You'd better be at the gate at 9 o'clock, ready to pay up, or I'll go straight to Bennett and tell her everything. Suppose he sneaks away tonight, I muttered. Paige didn't take her eyes off Bob's face. He could risk it, she said softly. But he might find the police coming after him. That would get in the way of your next lot of schemes, wouldn't it, Bob? Bob gave her a tight little smile. Okay, he said. We understand each other. I'll be there in the morning. Paige nodded briskly and headed off round the building. She was going so fast that I didn't catch up until she was almost at Miriam's tent. As I drew level with her, I could see her shaking with fury. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you." She stopped and shook her head. "I'm not cross with you. I knew about that all the time. Recognized you all from the scat post the first time I saw you." "So why didn't you say?" She gave me a twisted smile. "How could I make a fuss? I just teamed up with a super skigger himself." "Well, you've fixed him now," I said. "It's all over." "Not quite." Paige started walking again. "We have to go and see Scully now." "Why?" "To ask how much the bikes are worth, of course. They know all about selling second-hand bikes." She grinned. "We don't want to swindle Bob, do we?" We spent the evening in the woods, sitting round the fire with Scully and Nobby and Molly. They were cooking sausages, and Molly gave us one of his to share. Good to look after your mate. Got to look after your mates, haven't you?" he said. "Business partners," Scully said. Bob Nobby didn't say anything, but he listened very carefully while Paige explained about the bikes. Then he gave her a sharp look. "Bob's agreed to pay up. How did you manage that?" "Our secret," Paige said. "But don't worry, he'll pay. And then he's heading out of Lemon Dutch forever." "Well, he better not try coming here," Molly said gruffly. "Not after what he did." "But what about the bikes?" said Scully. "We've got a nice little business going thanks to him." "Thanks to Matt," Paige said. "He's the one who does all the work. You'll be better off without Bob screaming off half the money." She stood up. "We'll come down and talk about it once he's right out of the way. Deal?" "Deal," said Scully, jumping up to shake her hand. In the morning, Paige was more nervous than I'd expected. Went up to the gate early, and Bob kept us waiting until the very last moment. By the time he appeared, she was biting her nails and looking round anxiously. Bob didn't look worried at all. He had the money ready, and he counted the notes out into her hand. Then he gave us both a nod and hoisted his bag onto his back. "Be good," he said cheerfully. "Don't do anything I wouldn't do." He swung out through the gate and trampled away down the road with a spring in his step. As he went down the slope from Lemon Dutch, he was whistling a bouncy little tune. I thought Paige was going to pass out. "He doesn't care at all," she said furiously. "We thought we would stop in his tricks. Well, he's just moving on to something new, and now I can't get him sent back to England because I won't know where he is. He's fooled us." I wasn't so sure. He was at the bottom of the slope now. I stood up and watched him climb up the next hill. Wasn't he a bit too itchy, as if he was trying to prove something? As he disappeared over the top of the hill, I got Paige down. "Come on," I said. "I want to see what he's like when he thinks he's out of sight." We ran after him and walked quickly up to the top of the hill. When we came over the crest, he was much nearer than we expected. And there was nothing jaunty about him now. He was walking downhill quite slowly, dragging his feet a bit, as if the effort of putting on a show had exhausted him. Paige looked down at him. If I didn't know what he'd done, she said, I'd feel sorry for him now. I shook my head. He'll be okay. As soon as he's picked up a bit of French, he'll start scamming someone else, I expect. But we don't have to worry about him anymore. Come on, let's go and see Steph. But as we turned round, Steph came driving up the road towards us. On her way back from taking Pearson to school, when she saw us, she screeched to a stop and started talking very fast, pointing over her shoulder towards them in Dutch. Paige nodded and caught hold of my hand. She says they're putting up new tents in the bottom field. We ought to get back to make sure you get one. Mercy, I said. Mercy, Steph. And we started hurrying down the hill. It was Paige who spotted Justin. As we drew level with the camp, she gave a shout and pointed. Look, there's your dad. Look, it's not his dad. He was standing outside Merlin's tent, starting up towards the sports centre, as though he was searching for someone. Paige jumped up and down and waved to him. Yo-ho! Just doing yo-ho! What the hell? When he saw us, he started backing with both hands at once, as if he could scoop us towards him by pulling at the air. We ran the rest of the way along the road and up through the gap in the fence. And he watched us as though he could hardly bear to stand still. How's Toke? I said as soon as I was near enough to shout. Is he getting better? Hurry up, Justin said. You're missing his birthday. Paige started hanging back, but I caught hold of her arm and made her come with me. We ran up to the tent together and Justin lifted the flap so we could see inside. Toke was sitting in the nearest camp bed with something in his hand and a parcel open on his lap. Happy birthday, I said. What have you got there? Mum sent them, Toke said solemnly. I'm just deciding if I still like them. And he bit into the taco. The taco he was holding. Much later, when Toke was asleep, I went outside the tent to look up at the stars. I hadn't been for very long before Paige appeared. I've borrowed your money, she said. What are you going to do about choosing a new bike? Want me to come and help you buy it? I stared up into the sky. I've been thinking about that. I said, maybe I won't buy a bike. Not just yet. Then I could use the money to buy spares for repairs of people's bikes. I looked sideways at her, but I need someone to share the business with me. Someone who speaks French. Paige leaned back on her elbows. She had business with a smuggler, she said sullenly. That's a lot to ask. I'll only do it on one condition. Which is, I said wearily, you've got to learn to speak French. I looked down the hill at the sunflower fields and the road that went on and on into a whole unknown country. If you want to stay balanced, you have to keep moving. Okay, I said, it's a deal. And we finished the book. I'm going to read a bit about the writer. This is only this page, and then I'm guessing. This is what the writer looks like. I'm going to read about the writer, and then we're done. I'll probably put all the parts of it, though, if you guys want, so that you can just, yeah. Gillian Cross has been writing children's books for over 30 years. Before that, she took English degrees at Oxford and certain universities, and she has had various jobs, including working in a village bakery and being an assistant to a member of parliament. She is married with 4 children and lives in De Recette. Her hobbies include art, entering, and playing the piano. She won the Medal for Wolf and the Smarties Prize and the White Red Children's Novel Award for the Great Elephant Chase. And we're done. And I'll read the back. This is fun. What if you woke up tomorrow and everything had changed? Money is worthless. Your friends are gone. Armed robberies roam the streets. No one is safe. A community meant genuine danger. Annie Morgan. For Matt and his little brother Toga, that nightmare is a reality. Their only hope of survival is to escape through the Channel Tunnel, but the danger waits on the other side. Stay or go. What would you do? And it says Oxford Funky there. And we're done. Then I'll just read the front page. After tomorrow, a fast-moving, incredible, exciting read. Lon Blackman. Survival is your only option. Gillian Cross, winner of the Panther Medal. Survival is your only option. Bye, guys. I hope you enjoyed the whole term of reading this book. So we don't have to read this tomorrow. It's just going to be Christmas at the Lucky Cottage. How good is that? And then I'll be doing the test and tell you what I got on it. So bye.